Okay, I'm a shorty. What can I say? Janie Cope, for those of you who don't know me, I've been around a while. And I'm really happy to see you guys. And I'm going to, right now, Bob's going to shoot me for this, but I know there are a lot of new people out there, and I really hope you come up and introduce yourselves to Bob and I. I love to talk. So I'd really like to meet you all and just find out a little bit more about you. So for me, I put on here that I was at the Kosciuszko County Auditor's Office for 14 years, 12, 13, something like that. But I've now been at the Auditor of State's office for 14 years. I have no kids, but any of you that know me, I love dogs. Always have a dog in my life. And in December, January, I went on a trip to Roatan off the coast of Honduras. Highly recommend it, except there were a lot of sand fleas. Never dealt with those before, and they seemed to really like me. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of John Pont, but he was a football coach, several colleges. He was a football player. He was, I believe, the only coach that ever took IU to the Rose Bowl. That being said, it's because of my favorite quote is from him. And our high school football coach used to give us a quote for the day. And I've always thought this is so true, that man's greatest happiness is when he is tested beyond what he thinks is his breaking point and does not fail. And I think a lot of you can relate to that breaking point. And this would not be a presentation from me without a couple of jokes. I didn't have a joke, and I was struggling to find one, and I'm not going to say what I'd originally said. So I'll just read a couple of them. You know, you can Google anything. Probably my favorite, one of my favorites is, I asked the corporate wellness officer, "Can you teach me yoga?" He said, "How flexible are you?" And I said, "Well, I can make it on Tuesday." My boss says I have a preoccupation with vengeance. We'll see about that. And I'm only going to do, two more. When an employment application asks who is to be notified in case of emergency, I always write, "A very good doctor." And this one is especially for today. The reason we nod off to sleep is so it looks like we're just emphatically agreeing with everything when we're in a boring meeting. No good puns this time, sorry guys. Okay, so today we're just going to briefly go over the different types of lit, the distributions to the counties, the property tax relief, the PTR, and abstracts, settlements, and the balancing. Because we run into, when doing your property tax relief workbook, which you've all done now for those counties that have it, you had to do that before you could calculate your tax bills. So you've all been through it, and one of the questions a lot of you got was, we disagree with what your forthcoming balance was. So we wanted to go over how we do that. How do we figure out what you should have? So that being said, also thought you might want to know how long you have to pay attention. So there you go. There are 6 different types of funding sources for local income tax. Got them listed there. Certified shares, public safety. It all depends on what your county adopted. And just a little plug here, I didn't put this up on the screen, but last fall's conference, Matt Parkinson at DLGF did an amazing explanation about LIT. It's a great program, and they have it on their website. It was a PowerPoint. So especially for you new auditors, if you want to know more about it, that's a really, really good resource. They do have it out on their website. Okay, page 5. This one's a little wordy, but basically it's going over when you, depending on what you received, if you received any of these types of lit, what fund it goes into, and if that's a clearing fund, then what fund you put the county portion in. It's really helpful. This was on the memo that went out in January, and it's very, very helpful that you make sure that you are putting the proper amount of money into those funds. When we were working with the county auditors, we did find that there were some counties where money was not being put into the proper fund, and lo and behold, they were short having money in the fund to make their payments. And then most of you that received it, most of the counties, I believe, received the supplemental lit distribution that we just sent out the 15th. And just the IC code that goes along with it, and that explanation that when your trust balance exceeds 15% of your certified distributions, that's how it generates the supplemental distribution. And so like for this year, they looked at the trust account balance from 2017. And thus, like I said, most counties, I believe, received a distribution. The distribution reports are on the DLGF website, and I know we had at least one county that contacted me and said, I got money, but there's no report out there. If that's your situation, if you have a question on those reports, you can reach out to DLGF. I'm sure Fred would be happy to help you. Yes, he will. Okay. This, not a whole lot of information. The property tax relief for the abstract. Once again, you went through the PTR workbook where you calculated the tax rate that for PTR you're going to use to reduce the obligation to the taxpayers. That money is then supported by the lit collections. And a little bit later, we're going to go through the reconciliation process. Okay, this one I'm probably going to read a little bit of. This is what happens at settlement. You, the county auditor, provide to the county treasurer the amount of up to 1/2 of the PTR amount from your abstract. Some counties, like we've already had 3 counties, I believe, that have submitted their settlement for June. So they may have opted to just do 5/12 because they haven't received that June 1st distribution. It really doesn't matter. Either way's fine. And it's my understanding then the county treasurer will enter that to their cash book. And I'm not sure about this, Lori. I know some counties have always entered it as a lump sum line item on their cash book. Some actually get the breakdown from the auditor for what taxing district, for how much, and I don't know that matters. Yeah, I don't think it matters. Better preference. Okay, so now at June's settlement, which we're getting ready for, Bob's going to go over. If you are including refunds, accounting for refunds with your settlement, in other words, you're going to reduce the distribution to the units so you can pay back your county general fund because of refunds, and if PTR is a part of that, you may have a difference. In other words, depending on how those PTR changes were affected by the refunds, you as the auditor may be distributing more than what the treasurer has on their cash book, or it could be less than. So if you're distributing more, you're going to need to give the treasurer additional money out of that PTR fund. And conversely, if you're distributing less than what you already gave the treasurer, then that'll be a quietus that you'll do back to that PTR fund. If you don't include refunds, you don't have to worry about it because you're going to distribute exactly the amount that you already gave the treasurer. But December is a little bit different because you will probably always have a difference because at December we're doing the whole year. So you've got your total charges, but you've got additional charges. Now you're accounting for additional tax bills. When you had an increase in assessment and you had to add an auditor's assessment to a tax bill. You've got mobile homes, which are not included on the abstract. You may also have credits to the tax bills through C of E, and then of course you account for the refund. So you will always have a difference between the PTR to distribute and the amount you'd provided to the treasurer at the beginning of settlement. And once again, if you're distributing more than what you had provided to the county treasurer, you're going to write a check out of your PTR fund, 6203, and give it to the treasurer. And if, in fact, you're distributing, because of those adjustments, less than what you've already given the treasurer, then you're going to quietus that difference amount back into the PTR fund. You know, I write notes on here, but I don't pay a bit of attention to them. I just talk. So, when we're looking to balance the property tax relief, these are the things that would be receipted, we would expect to see receipted into your fund. The monthly lit distributions, the supplemental amount, and then that amount at settlement if that was needed. Same way with if what would have been distributed out of the fund would have been your settlement amounts that you gave to the treasurer at the beginning of settlement and any settlement adjustments that were needed. And you'll also see that, which Bob will mention at the on the quietus worksheet. So when you're looking at your PTR and you want to make sure you've got a good balance, you're going to need your ending balance for the prior 2 years. So like for this year's PTR workbook, we started out with the December 2017 balance. And even though we say December 17, it's really after you processed all of your settlement. So after you did all your quietuses and all of that. So we needed that and the 2018 balance. You need to know how much you received annually for PTR, how much for supplemental, which those can come off of those DLGF reports, and you need your settlement forms from both June and December. This is exactly what we did when we were reviewing your PTR worksheets. These are not fake numbers, because you can tell they don't end up in 00. This is actually from a county where it starts out with their beginning balance. You add in their 2018 certified distribution, added in their supplemental distribution of PTR to get the total amount that was available, and then from their for their June and December settlement, those amounts of PTR from the 105, subtract those, and the difference is the anticipated balance. And in this case, and it really was true, the fund balance that the county auditor provided was exactly what was expected. It can happen where it may be a little different and no one's going to get their panties in a knot over it, as I like to say. That's not very professional. But when you see a big difference, that's where there's a problem. And if you go back and you decide that you don't have anything else to do and you want to go back and check this, or you know right now, I don't balance. There's something's not right here. Go back, check your activity. See if at the end of settlement you did those settlement adjustments, whether it was a quietus or money to the treasurer. Because if you needed to give money to the treasurer and you did not, there's no way you balanced with the treasurer at the end of settlement unless there was some creative accounting going on. Happens. Check your monthly receipts. Make sure the monthly receipt that you get for PTR went into that PTR fund only. In fact, make sure if you have any of those other types, the certified shares, the special distributions, make sure that money went into that specific fund. And then if you see, oh my gosh, I've got some receipt in there that I don't know what it is, or a disbursement that you don't know what it is, you can't come back to it, you need to do some research and find out why. And as some of you ran into this year, when doing that, that you got asked by the people from Crow, okay, we're seeing a big difference. Was there something else? Well, in some cases, the counties had not moved the leftover from prior to lit when it was just LOIT, and some of you didn't have to go through that, so you don't know what I'm talking about. But you were to move the money from that old fund into 6203. Some counties have not done that, had not done that until 2018. So we needed to account for that. That was why it was different. That's okay, because you did what you were supposed to do. And so that's just a couple of things that you can look for. I will tell you that we did have a few issues. Don't want to pick on any county, because there wasn't just one county where their lit monies were not being distributed into the correct funds, and the money that was given to the treasurer didn't come out of the PTR fund. And so we worked together, we got it all fixed, and moving forward, they're gonna be great. And the best part about mistakes are you learn from that and you move forward, and you'll always remember after that, don't do that again. And since I'm just about done and I don't have any more good jokes, just a couple of friendly reminders. You guys get emails from me sometime that says, just a friendly reminder, we haven't received such and such. Just a reminder, when you're submitting money, we'll just take the fines and forfeitures. That was one of the most current ones. We need that remittance form. It's a state prescribed form. We have to have that for our backup, so when we get audited, we can prove why we have it. Where did it come from? So that's always helpful. Otherwise, you get just a friendly reminder, we received your money, not the form. So I would personally appreciate it. And then also, I think we've mentioned this before, but especially since there are so many newer auditors, if you have new personnel in new roles, say somebody that used to only do excise is now doing your settlements, we have certain documentation that goes to specific roles. It's helpful if you can let us know that, so that when in our address book we can designate that. Also for ACH notifications, we work with our vendor people. You let me know who you want to receive the notifications. We'll send an email to them and get that updated. Usually it's very fast. Or if you're not receiving the ACH notifications, just shoot us an email. I'll get you a copy of one, but then we'll try to work together to figure out what's going on. A lot of times they're just in your spam folder. If you change servers or something like that, or they've tightened down your firewalls. There's a term I didn't think I'd ever use correctly. It can cause our notices to be rejected, because they're usually sent out en masse. And so if you've got any questions, ask Bob, because he's going to tell you if you have any questions to ask me. There are our emails. Also, if you just email localgovernment@auditor.in.gov, that goes to a general email that Bob and I both see, plus our bosses, to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And that is a really good way to get a hold of us. But you're always welcome to call. And but make sure this Friday, if you're at work, I'm not going to be there, so I want you to bombard Bob with questions. Okay? Great to see you guys. We'll turn it over to Bob.